Okay, I welcome you, class, to this short YouTube video, which is a kind of follow-up on what has been covered in the class, in the lecture rooms, and in the setters with my fellow teacher, in attempt to explain ethical issues surrounding teacher professionalism. And our today's topic is toward teacher professional ethics, and in essence, issues that will be considered is morality and the morals or moral issues in education setup, or simply moral issues in the educational setup. We are going to discuss pertinent issues surrounding teaching and learning process. And central to this lecture is to see teacher-student environment interaction in the course of trying to provide the ideal education. When I say ideal education, this is the kind of education which society need. There are some of the issues which are happening today in learning and teaching environment, which sometimes compromise society expectation from teacher professionals. And therefore, there's a lecture, it's an attempt to clarify, or it's an attempt to elaborate a little bit some of the ethical issues which a teacher must consider if at all he or she want to implement his professional conduct in line with social expectation. And by starting, we want to see the globalization impacts in education. Globalization, we have discussed in the earlier classes, this has made the world to be like a single village where there is high interaction of information, mobility of resources, human beings, name them. Boundaries is no more an issue when it comes to communication and the interaction of human society. And therefore, we see there are so many webs which are impacting our societies. Sometimes some of them comes from social institutions like educational institutions, which have direct or indirect impact to the future society, or to the children which are the future leaders in the society. And therefore, want to see the role and the role of teachers in trying to bring an expected society which will survive amid this turbulence of global waves. And therefore, by starting, we want to see the impact of globalization on education itself. Globalization has enhanced the ability of learners to access, adapt, and apply knowledge in the way that suits their interest and the interest of society at large. And therefore, we see there's a paradigm shift in education undertakings, both in meanings, content, delivery, and the context. Take note of these two, these four parameters. We have meaning of education has changed because of globalization, the content itself, the delivery, and the context. We are no longer talking of a classroom as a four-walled room. Sometimes you can be even in an open space when you have you interacting with the internet, a website. You can have your own classes, even participating in the other classes outside your boundaries. This is how things are happening. Therefore, there is impact in educational meaning, impact in the content, delivery, and the context. In the former days before globalization, education was seen like a two-way interaction, teach and student. When we see a mastery coming from one side, a teacher. But nowadays, because of this globalization, we see teachers are no longer master of the content. They are now playing the role of guardian, or the role of the role of coaching, the role of mentoring, the learning and teaching process. We're no longer talking about education in that old mind. Nowadays, talk about education, we see as like means of achieving our lives. It's the way of acquiring knowledge and the skills, meaning to our living, so that we can positively interact with our immediate environment. So that caused also a thinking, different thinking on what should be involved, what should be the content of education to the society. And therefore, we see there's an emphasis on the lifelong learning because of this. We always, there's very dynamic nature of education, output and education product, and therefore have to think a kind of content which is so dynamic also to suit the interest of the client or the interest of the graduate to the wide scope. We see also the issue of delivery. I've talked about the teacher delivering content to students, but nowadays the level of education has acquired a different modes. We have technological coming in. There's a high level of integrating technology in the teaching and learning process, and therefore we talk about the blended mode. We talk about the blended mode. We have conventional means of learning, like what we're doing here in our university. Sometimes we meet with teachers in the classroom. They give us live lectures. We interact with them. We discuss. But also we have this kind of so blended mode of learning. Sometimes we interact. Sometimes we use a platform like Moodle, like what I'm doing now. We record lecture and then you send and share through the learning management system. But there's also sometimes we can have interact with the different environment. There are so many varieties of means of learning as compared to the past, and this is because of the globalization. But also we see the context. In the former days, we are talking about education that can suit the interest of the nation. But nowadays, when we talk about quality education, it's a kind of education which does not consider territorial boundaries of a country. No, we have to think education, quality context of the education in terms of how the graduate can interact with the external world. And that's, we are talking about the global citizen. Global citizen, we want to be citizen anywhere. You can graduate here in Tanzania, but if you can find employment in Kenya, employment in Uganda, employment in US, any place in the globe is your area you can survive with the education. So that kind of education should be a meaningful one with the required with the requisite kind of knowledge, skills that can equip the graduates into becoming competent graduate who can interact with immediate and far environments in search of survival. Second aspect to consider in collaboration impact is the so-called impact on morality. Or there's the controversial in learning and teaching environment. I was hearing the proceeding in the House of the Assembly. One member of the Parliament was raising an attention to the government, or that we are very much concerned with the ethical conduct of students from primary at least to A level. But when it comes to university, students are very, very, very free to conduct anyhow, and these are the future leaders. We talk about impact of globalization on morality. How should our students conduct themselves in teaching and learning process? Can they exercise freedom because of globalization, or we have to at least give them a kind of guidance that they can maintain morality of the society where they come from? This is another area we to debate, and there is a lot of controversy. And I expect you, class, to have at least to have a debate on this particular area. And therefore, another area is impact in the mode of service delivery. We talk about privatization versus public provision of education. You see, in Tanzania, for example, in the colonial era, education was like a tool for colonialists labor, both skilled and unskilled labor, for sake of improving the economic conduct. But after independence, also there was a need of skilled labor, and we see, for example, in Tanzania, immediately after independence, the one step ahead was to liberate educational provision in the state, and we see that Mwalimu took initiative to ensure that primary education by 1974 was universal enterprise. And but we see that because of changes in mode of economic services, we talked about government being overburdened, and therefore there was another liberation movement in economic aspect where private sector also was partners to provision of education. So we see that this is also because of the impact of globalization. We talk about the private schools or private education institutions versus public education institutions. These also deliver the same service. So when it comes to the product, how do we ensure that we produce the same product of graduate from private and public? Another area of controversy we have to debate. Sometimes because, for example, in private schools, you find that maybe the motive for them to survive in the market is how they perform in the market, how they pass the prize, how they can rank first, second within the 10 performing schools. Those has for some of the school to cheat in examination, to practice illegal movements during and after the examination. That's to ensure that they can acquire a good name. And that also is because of globalization. But it comes to public schools also because of competition in promotion whatsoever, the same practice is also happening. So this is also an impact of globalization. We have to take note of those as teachers so that we ensure that regardless of what comes with the globalization, we ensure that we maintain ideal education in our state so that we produce quality education quality education so that graduates can be used in all aspects of our life, political, social, economic, whatsoever. So you see, teachers comes in this particular discussion because we know that regardless of what kind of education, regardless of the media of educating a student, but still we need somebody who can practice guidance and counseling services to ensure that learning takes place in acceptable and standard way. And another area we see the impact of market and the technology. It's another area where we see that there's no longer difficulties for boundaries. You see sometimes teacher-student interaction has increased recently because of mobile phones. Students can talk with the teachers even during the night. It's another area we have to consider when it comes to parent-children, parent-child relationship. We see the impact of market. How do are we commoditize? Are we making our education output a commodity to take in the market? Are we making education output as service? It's another question. And we talk about the issue of knowledge economy. It has brought controversy in educational process because nowadays education is part of the we talk about uh, 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 knowledge economy. This, if not taken in with the high integrity, it may affect the whole process of educating our children because of the market force when it comes to educational services. We compete on getting students whatsoever, and that's how sometimes has brought a lot of challenges in education arena. Let us see the so-called ethics in education. Why do we talk about ethics in education? Why ethics in education? Remember, in the previous classes, we have talked much about ethics as principles which guide the group and decision making regarding to right and wrong conduct. And why in education? It's because we need to recognize, we need to recognize the really power of teacher in it. We as teachers, we need to recognize the innate power of teachers. Teachers can change our children to good or worse, depends on their ethical background. And that's why we emphasize on preparing professional teachers. Not everyone can teach. Teaching is not something absolute price. No, we have to pay price to get good teachers. And we have to class to bet on this. Who is a good teacher? It's a question. It's a basic question. Who is a good teacher? It's a basic question. So we need ethics in education because we need to recognize the lead power of teachers in teaching and learning process, how they bring in their behavior, which may affect and influence the whole school environment and eventually the learning and teaching process of our children. Therefore, we have to think of the lead power of our own innate as teachers, excellence and behavioral pattern in the school environment. Teachers are at the center of the learning process. Of course, not because of the power of knowledge, no, because of guiding the process. They are the one who can guide how well should education be provided to achieve intended educational goals of the state. Schools are environment of trust. Take this one. Schools are environment of trust, and the teachers therefore plays the fundamental role. They are at the apex of the trust, apex of the trust. If I draw a triangle, teachers at the apex of the trust. Think this one. Okay, you have your children. You have your children. Almost you have your child. You can have influence on his or her life from year 0 up to 3 or 4, because the current policy also advocate that 5 years to 6 a child should be in the formal learning process, and therefore from that 60 years to and beyond, a child is in education institutions. So in other words, a child is in the trust of teachers' hands. So schools are involved of trust. We trust the schools very much. Apart from religious institutions, schools are the area where every parent will take the children to school, and they are quite confident that things are taking place in their interest. But nowadays, you have a lot of stories regarding the abuse of children by teachers themselves. This is because environment has been affected by the so-called globalization. Therefore, schools should remain environment of trust, and those who can make school to be environment of trust regardless of the turbulences of globalization, that the teachers, when they are well grounded in professional ethics. So teacher-student relationship is one of the foundation of our society. Take the note of this one, okay? Teacher-student, teacher-student, teacher-student relationship is the foundation of the society. We blame much of what is happening in the society. Maybe we have to track back to what is happening in schools. When we have teacher with poor moral background, when we have teachers who are immoral in nature, we expect they will transform the same to students, and that is the future society. It is very important. It is imperative that we have professional teachers in our educational system. One of the study conducted by one scholar, he talked about the importance of having quality teachers in education system. We talk about quality education. It is impossible without having quality teachers. No education system which will surpass, no education system which will be of higher quality than the quality of teachers it has in its system. And therefore, if you want to have a foundation, if you want to have a foundation, if you want to have a good society with the which is rooted in ethics and the morality, the first area to start is to ensure that we have professional teachers with good integrity, with good morals, who are well grounded in morality, as far as who can acknowledge which is good to the society, and therefore stand on those issues to ensure that they transform the same to students. Okay, I got this stuff from the source psychology lexicon. I was trying to think of the ethical hotspot. Okay, let me try to elaborate a little bit on the concept of uh, hotspot. What is a hotspot? We talk about hotspot. Think of think of think of this ground. Okay, we have this mark, this mark, this mark, this mark, this mark, this mark. All these call them. These are spots. Spots. Okay, spots. Spots. Areas to note within this ground. So we talk about ethical hotspot. Want to see some of the issues we have to take note when we think of educating our children. So these are just spots. Okay, mark on the brain, which we have to take note of the existence. Let me take you back to our lecture. To our Let me take you back to what I was trying to share with you. Um, what is ethical hotspot? What is ethical hotspot? When we talk about ethical hotspot, we want to see those areas which you have to make concentration if we really want to ensure that we have a society with integrity, a society of teachers with integrity. Ethical hotspot and overview. The general meaning, according to psychology lexicon, ethical hotspot are ethical issues. Because I was putting some notes on that plane. Those are ethical issues which, let me try to have some highlights. Key, some highlights. Uh, these are ethical issues that have been focused upon over the recent years and addressed in varying professional controversies. Remember, we're talking about teacher professionalism, okay? It has professional codes for teachers. So there are some of the issues we have to concentrate if we want to examine the conduct of our teachers. But generally, in the professional code of ethics, there are general issues which has been enumerated, which have been highlighted, which has been established as issues to concentrate if one to understand the conduct of being professional or conduct of one becoming professional. The one is the confidentiality, competence, okay, due relationship and the conflict of interest, inappropriate assessment, informed concepts. We have this misplacement of credentials and the sexually with clients. Okay, these are very common issues in any organization. They are very common issues in any service provision. They are very common issues in the conduct of many professionals, and the teachers are professional. But we have seen the requisite of becoming a professional, and therefore, if we consider this generally, so that in one way or another they touch our life. Confidentiality. Okay, how do you treat confidential matters when it comes to office? You have a student who has been abused. He share with you his emotional. How do you keep it confidence? How do you share how do you treat confidential issues within your conduct? Are you the one taking the confidential issues in your office and taking them outside when you're drunk, or you're drunk, you have taken alcohol, whatsoever? How do you treat confidential matters in your conduct? It's another area or one of the area we need to concentrate on trying to see the professional conduct. Another is competence. Okay, you are a teacher. How competent are you in delivering the service to the customers? In the education institution, we have almost 4 customers. We serve students, we serve the employer, we serve the community, the public at large, but we serve the interests of the state. How do you balance? How do you produce your service competently? It's another area. Are you laxity in producing your service, or are you competent to that expectation that anyone will say, "Wow, this is the kind of professional we need to serve the community"? It's very important. Another area is due relationship and the conflict of interest. Some of us teachers, we are in school, we're teaching education institutions, but we are divided mind. We're not loyal. We're not loyal to the institution and to the government because of conflicting interest. Okay, you have no the sense of serving the public. Selfishness is driving us much to the point of even forgetting what are we supposed to be doing in the area we have been posted or employed. Another is inappropriate assessment. This is a pertinent issue. It's a crucial. It's one of the area in education we have to consider very much, because assessment is what will validate the candidate and of course recommends where the candidate is supposed to be serving. Today we have so many people with less qualification in actual sense, but you see in their papers they have higher qualification. This is because of the assessment. Someone who do not deserve to have a score is given a score deliberately or because of some of the strings attached. It's very discouraging. You know, even teachers we are entrusted to create the stock of human capital resources. All sectors in the economy need human capital. Teachers at the center of creating this stock of human capital. So assessment is one of the crucial process towards producing the graduates who can be useful in different areas of social, political, and economical life. Informed consent. Informed consent in other areas. Okay. Trying to abuse our fellow. We tend to give out information of others without their consents. That's another area we have to consider our conduct. Also, misuse of the credentials. You bring your CV, forged CV, or or you bring information when you're required to bring information. You bring information which are not trustworthy. And then the last is sexual relationship with the clients, even within the office, is also affecting the conduct and the output of the organization. Let's see the issue of ethical sport in education. In education, I want to specifically, those I've presented, these are general. I want to see specifically in education, what are the hotspot in education? And they should be able to define what is ethical sport, because in one way or another, I'll ask you in one way or another, and at least you should be able to explain what does it mean. Okay, ethical sport, these are morals and ethical shortcomings in education, which we have to take note. Remember, morals and ethical shortcomings in education are regrettable external blemish. They tarnish regrettable external blemish. They tarnish the whole image of the teaching cadre. Uh, no, in the former days, I remember in the former days, immediately after independence, teachers were trusted people in society. But nowadays, because of what is happening, associating teachers, it has tarnished, it brings blemish to the whole society of teachers, uh, and even to the lecturers in higher institutions. So we say that morals and ethical shortcomings, if we don't practice and perform higher standards of moral life, morality in our society, eh, all the shortcomings in our ethical conduct will automatically tarnish our profession. That's why I'm saying that morals and ethical shortcomings in education are regrettable external blemish, and of course they harm to the teaching, they harm the teaching process, or what I say, they harm teaching professional virtues. It is very important that we should practice and maintain higher standards of morality so that we can turn back our society to that former days of trusting teachers as the most important personnel we need in the society to transform our future generation. Identifiable ethical hotspot in education includes the following. We have the conduct, how the teacher themselves behave. We have assessment, how they take, measure, and evaluate teaching and the learning process. We say diversity, how they treat students in their custodia. You know, you have students with different needs. How do they treat them? And therefore, have planning. How do they plan their teaching and learning process so that they can achieve the goals set aside? Also, say there are almost these four. These four are the identified so far identified all the major ethical hotspots in teaching and learning process. As I said, conduct. This is all about our behavior, about our attribute, it's about our character. We have assessment, how we measure and evaluate teaching and learning process for placement, for diagnostic and other applications. Diversity, how do we deal with the students with the different needs? We have different with special needs. We have difference in students. How do we treat them? Those with higher talent, those low learners, how do we do them? Those from poor families, how do we deal with them? This is another area. And the last, planning is very important because planning is a prudence activity, and of course, teachers are part of the parcel of this process. Let's start. I'll elaborate a little bit on this very rush so that we can capture at least what I mean by these four ethical output. Conduct, this is the manner of acting or controlling yourself. How do you control yourself? And under conduct, there's so that how do you control yourself? We talk about your temperament, your internal environment. How do you control your internal environment when you are happy, when you are your emotional setup, when you are not happy? How do you control yourself to the extent that it will not affect it will not affect the behavior of a student? It's very important. So conduct, this is the manner of acting or controlling yourself. It's an evidence of a person's inward state of propriety. How you can control your internal environment. We say temperament. How do you control your temperament? How do you control your internal environment? Okay, you are teaching in the class, and later you come to discover that a student is maybe is chatting or is praying or is smoking. How do you react? It's very important. Your conduct. How do you conduct? How do you act? How do you control yourself within school and without schools? When you are in school and when you are out of school, it's very important. We need to see your character being maintained as a teacher, someone trusted by the society, and of course, you have to demonstrate. We have to demonstrate your high standard of life, where you become a role model to students and of course to society. So demonstrate the conduct demonstrates the why of behavior is that at least as important as the what is conduct define why of your behavior and the what of your behavior, because you are not there for yourself. As being a teacher, you're not there but for yourself. You are there to serve the interest of the public. Remember, professional is for public. You are serving the interest of the public. Those five issues which are requisite for becoming a professional. Public service is something you have to take note. And therefore, and anything you do in the teaching process, think of the public first, public interest before personal interest. So it's the application. Okay, conduct according to Carl 2000, you can search this stuff and read. It is in the reference on the in the outline handle to you. You see this reference. According to Carl 2000, conduct is the application of rationality and intelligence. Rationality, it involves thinking and choosing the best course of action. It's the application of rationality and intelligence in practical conduct. We want to see you conducting in the manner expected, regardless of prevailing situation. When you are down, when you are up, we want to see your resilience, how you adapt a situation which is dealt by anybody. Because emotionally severe, because being your teacher, you are the role model. We want to see how you can control situation rather than situation controlling you. So according to Carl, this we talk about the conduct. How do you apply your rational thinking and your intelligence in practical conduct, in practical life? We talk about it's a kind of phronesis, practical wisdom. Phronesis, practical wisdom. Phronesis, practical wisdom. How practically employ your wisdom in a contradictory situation. Talk about conduct. And in teaching process conduct of a teacher can be examined in the following areas. We want to see in teaching process, how do we examine your conduct? You can evaluate your conduct. We can examine your conduct and judge your conduct is towards becoming a good teacher or not a good teacher through at least these 5 parameters. One is teacher temperament, teacher's internal environment. How do you control your emotion? How do you control your anger? When students abuse your relationship, how students maybe violate your instructions, how do you control yourself? Sometimes you give assignment to students with good and clear instructions, but when they submit the work, you find they're outside the instruction, totally not adhere to the instructions. Do you tear apart their assignment? Do you punch them? Or how do you control your internal environment in relation to dealing with the students? Another area is teaching activities. How do you organize your teaching activities? Sometimes we enter the class in very harsh. We're not prepared. We enter in the class reading the book. No organization at all. How do you organize your teaching activities? Records, follow-ups, counseling. This also you can examine your conduct as a good teacher or not a good teacher. Another is personal relationship. How do you relate with the students? How do you relate to your peer? How do you relate with your staff members? It's another person. Because if you're arrogant, you are not compatible with anybody, you can say, well, we have good conduct. No. Conduct is an external. It's external. It's something you can evaluate by seeing how do you relate with others. We talk about it. So out of conduct, we can talk about your reputation. Conduct brings your reputation to the society members. We have another motivation. What is your internal forces of doing what you are doing? What are the underlying impetus, underlying force of doing what you are doing? It's important because sometimes teachers becomes very active when in the end days of getting salaries. But for the teacher professional, motivation to teach comes from intrinsic. It is intrinsic. It comes from inside because doing teaching, practicing teaching profession to a professional teacher is part of it's like feeding serving society to the activities which has been sent to him, and always we take it serious as if nobody can do that work instead except himself. So no excuse. He can control environment even in a budget control in budget challenges. A motivated teacher will always show up and practice his teaching profession quite well. Another area is on crime and punishment. When students misbehave, how do you process and take judgment of their action? We had a lot of controversy, a lot of issues coming from teachers on this corporal punishments. Some of the students has been paralyzed because of these corporal punishments. Some of them even has faced death situation because of this punishment. A teacher will punish students. It's like flogging an animal. It's because of this conduct. If you're really practicing a teaching profession, you know what is punishment, when to exercise punishment, what is the role of punishment. All this should be examined in the teacher profession. Okay. So in the conduct, we have two ways. We have an appropriate conduct we call misconduct, and this is calls for punishment for teachers through the process of established code of conduct on the registered board. You remember those 5 issues to consider and to become a profession. Okay, let's see assessment. Assessment. This is about it involves about its measurement and evaluation, measurement and evaluation of the teaching process, and of course it requires honesty, integrity, and trustworthiness. Sometimes you prepare the assessment tool, test, a quiz, you have a short examination whatsoever. And because you are friend to some of students, you disclose your paper to some, and so when it comes to the judgment, you not be fair because someone already known what the question all about. You need to be fair. Honest is very important, and the integrity, trustworthy is very important. In the assessment process, you need to exercise honesty, integrity, and the trustworthy. Treat students equally. Okay, prepare an examination which will measure the level of learning. Don't prepare examination which you intend deliberately intend to make students fail. That is not fair in teaching and learning process, because you have to ask why assessment. Why assessment? If you can answer that question honestly, and therefore you should be able to be a honesty in a teacher with exercising honesty, integrity, and trustworthiness in the whole process of preparing questions, preparing marking scheme, and even the marking process itself. You should not be biased. You should avoid a prejudice when it comes to assessment process. Okay. I will explain what he or she is the merit. What is supposed to be achieved by students should be exactly what is supposed. If you want to bell curve, want to standardize, then it should be to all students. Don't be a person of two sides when coming to assessment process. You should be quite honesty with integrity and the trustworthiness, because out of the assessment, as I've said earlier, is where we can decide the placement, the promotion, the diagnostic, and other action decision can be made out of the assessment process. The results of assessment is what gives us information how far we are moving in the learning and the teaching process. We can accredit, we can validate, we can improve, we can modify the teaching and learning process based on the assessment results. This is very important. Okay, teachers must be honest and promise ethical habit in the process of teaching and learning process. Abstain from all sorts of falsification. This is very important. Avoid from all sorts of falsification, being false, bringing wrong information, bringing lying, lying in the assessment process. You bring. We had a story in the earlier days. One of some of the lecturers, assistant lecturers, of course, in the higher institution. One of the higher institution I will not be mentioning here because this is so public. But sometimes, okay, they conduct examination, but they don't mark. They just bring results. How do you become fair if you do not mark the script? You must mark the script and they bring it, because if you just accredit student with the mark you think is appropriate to them without going through their script, then you are bringing the false information. The falsification is very bad in assessment process. You have to abstain from all sorts of falsification for the sake of improving teaching and learning process. Falsification data information related to assessment will bring harm to the state, to the government, in the way you haven't even imagined, because we will employ based on the certificate. Of course, nowadays there's an improvement. You conduct an interview. Sometimes you'll be taken into a practical assessment, and therefore we see your papers. But of course, if you come for a teaching card in university, we talk about GPS. So if GPS is coming from out of false education data, definitely you are harming the state, and therefore that sin you cannot you cannot avoid it, because you are the one behind that dilemma. Okay. So falsification violates every model of ethical conduct in the law. It is very bad, and I urge you, my audience, in your teaching and the learning process, when you're conducting assessment, you have to, with all cost, avoid bringing false data to the system. Okay. So what I'm saying, falsification face value. Talk about its immediate implication. It can be good. Falsification face value, immediate implication, immediate implication can be very good, but the long run impact of falsification for false data, it harms even your generation. So avoid it. So in the face value, an ethical and immoral practice assessment may seem to benefit students. Okay, you've been congratulated for passing your class. You're a good teacher because there are so many A's, B's. But in fact, you know for sure that that is not what they merit. You have made some of the maneuver because you want to be seen a good teacher. But what you are doing for sure brings harm to school, brings harm to students, and brings harm to the society, even to you, teacher yourself. So you have to avoid falsification with all cost, because it is so enjoyable, eh? Very temporal, but in the long run, its impact is devastating to the society and to the state at large. So I urge you, my fellow teacher professional, you have to avoid the falsification of data in the assessment process. Okay, diversity. Okay, students with different needs. We talk about uh, you are dealing with students with different needs. They have their different color, economical background, political background, with different social strata. They're coming from different social strata. You as a teacher, you have to note this one, that you are dealing with students from different backgrounds. Issues of racism, segregation, and the partiality should be avoided by any cost. You remember that you are preparing the future generation. So if you be tempted to be friends with good, those who are coming from a franchised family, those are coming from affluent families, and avoiding those from the poor families, you are harming them, because you don't know those who are refraining from might be the one with the good talent, maybe the one who becoming a good leaders, maybe the one who will become a good engineer in the future. So because of your because of your segregation in providing your service, you are harming the state. Some of the teachers, they even tend to receive a prize and become friends to students who are coming from rich families, and therefore they have no room from poor families. Don't judge a book from external. You have to know that we are the society. We come from different background, and when we come to education, we are seeking kind of liberation. Therefore, bring education without partiality. Consider equal all your students. When you mark examination, treat all papers equal. When you teach in the class, treat your students equal. If you want to make classroom interaction, you have to ensure that every student within your blocks is learning to that expectation. It is very, very important. And of course, a teacher should fulfill roles to all students assigned to him or her, regardless of their background differences. Okay, differences should not prompt you to treat students unequally. That is not acceptable in teaching profession. Sometimes you see, because of our political environment, we tend to receive students with school even without a proper uniform. So long as they are students and this has been agreed by the government, provide education to them without partiality. Okay, you are the teacher, you are the parents, you are in the shoes of the government efforts to ensure that you liberate your generation. Remember, I told you in the other classes that any country with the big population which is not educated, it is a curse. But if you have a big population which is educated, that is a blessing, because you can be able to utilize your resources optimally, rather than you don't become a burden to the government, because education will ensure and help you interact with the environments sustainably to ensure that at least you become productive to the state. Treat what I'm highlighting, I am underlining here with diversity. Treat all, okay, treat all students equally. Treat all students equally. In your class, you've been entrusted to teach. Okay, planning. Planning is a tool to the teacher. Okay, this planning is very important to the teacher. Planning tool refer to instruments that facilitate guide action steps to implementation of an initiative, program, or intervention. So a teacher, we don't talk about classroom planning, teaching and learning process planning. You have to plan how you will provide it. That's why you see even here in university, whenever we start the semester, you must have the teaching guideline. Yeah, you have the outline, but you have the teaching guideline. It will guide you on how you conduct your lecture and the assessment and other things relating to teaching process. Therefore, as a teacher, you have to condition yourself on the planning process. Planning too is referred to the instruments that facilitate guide action steps related to implementation of an initiative, program, or intervention. And therefore, at least you have to also the following. Okay, in your teaching, in your planning to teach process. One, you have to think that every academic year is time bound. It has specific time. So you talk about it. You have your as a teacher, normally you will have academic learning time. That's the time actually has been defined from top level to the classroom level. You have the syllabus, you have the scheme of work, you have the lesson plan. They have to communicate the same. If it is the university, you have the almanac, you have your curriculum, you have your study guide. Of course, you have your outline, you have the study guide. All these communicate the same. You have the school, the university calendar, it's the almanac for school. You have school calendar. So they have to communicate the same because you are limited with time. Time is always in a rush. No one has extra time, so you have to learn to manage your time properly. Effective time management is one of the winning element of a prudent teacher. So you have to become a good teacher. One of the areas will examine as practicing accordingly is how you can plan teaching and learning process. When timing of the event, when to instruct, when to conduct seminar, when to conduct testing, when to do. You have to have at least your things organized properly to show that teaching will take place gradually, to show that at the end of the semester, at the end of the academic year, you have achieved your education goals as set from the beginning or from the starting of the semester. Okay, another area is commitment into professional prudence. Professional prudence. You are a professional teacher, but there's that extra mind of ensuring that you are producing the best because the professional prudence. If within your profession you have to produce the best, commitment, how you giving the sacrificial aspect of your professional conduct is another area which will be a planning tool to you. It will help you, okay, to ensure that you exercise your planning process, your teaching process effectively. Of course, in the commitment, you need to have item checklist. You need to be also analytical thinking. Item checklist, don't start a day haphazardly. No, don't start a day with someone who has no vision and direction. When you start a day, you know in that day what you want to achieve. Prepare your checklist. Okay? Those major activities 1, 2, 3, 3, and at what time you do it. So when it's done, you tick, it is complete. At the end of the day, you find that your day is over with the achievement. But if you don't plan, you plan to fail. Okay? It's very important to have to prepare. You have to condition yourself to at least prepare a checklist, daily checklist of what you want to achieve in that broad day. Okay. Okay, another analytical thing you should be think you have to develop ability to think and analyze issues as a teacher. You know, teaching is something which requires someone with the prudence, because you are exercising parenting, exercising guardianship, exercising there are so many activities which are all part to the teacher. So in order for them to happen with effectiveness and efficiency, it all require planning. And also there's also talk about some meeting agenda. You have to know what is happening in your institution so that you can plan well when and how to attend those issues, because you are part of the community, a part of being teacher. Also, teaching and learning resources at disposal is another thing you have to think. What you have a school budget or university budget, you have resources which you need in the teaching process. What do you have in hand, and how do you use them to achieve the best? Always we are learning short of resources, but I think we have to maximize our output. How do you balance the two? It's very important, and that will be achieved if you can be competent in the planning process. Okay. Okay, so I was prudence. What's the prudence? And I was trying to search the meaning of prudence. Prudence, in prudence, what to do? You have to establish it's the establishment of right goals and selecting the right means to achieve this goal. That's what prudence. Someone with ability, a prudent person is someone with the ability to establish right goals and select the right means to achieve these goals. You see, we are being faced with so many issues, so many goals, but how do you establish the right goal and find the right means to achieve that goal? That will only happen with a prudence practice or a teacher exercising prudence. A prudence teacher will only produce what's desirable amid diverse goals facing him. And of course, a prudent teacher creates the right goals and selects the best means to accomplish them. You see, we are faced with a lot of issues. Okay, the school year, or the school calendar is full of activities. Still, we have to ensure that we teach our students. How do you balance the two? It's when you can be able to plan. So, learning activities and lesson plans are developed in advance, and the learning environment is created and assessed in a dynamic way so that it addresses the real needs of students maximally across all modes of learning, regardless of what is being faced within the school environment. There are so many events coming, disrupting your teaching schedule, but you have to remain focused. That can happen only if you cannot plan. Those who plan will always excel, and they will always go ahead, and they will ensure that for teacher professional, that's one of the aspects you have to examine yourself. Okay, let's see another thing which is very important to this lecture before I conclude in today's lecture. Okay, we talk about the causal factors determining moral thoughts and actions. Okay, we talk about teacher as a person, it's a human being. We talk about moral philosophy, ethics as a moral philosophy. Okay, we want to see the causal factors, factors causing changes, factors causing changes in our moral, our behavior, our action. According to Thomas 1997, again this book is in your reference, you go and read it. He has established almost 5 factors which will affect our morality, which will affect our thinking, also will affect our actions. We call them the causal factors determining our moral, our behavior, our thoughts, and our actions. According to Thomas 1967, it's not 4, it's 5. Factors has been categorized according to the moral development theorist. Okay, one is heredity and environment. Talk about heredity, what you have acquired in the bloodstream of your parents, of your ancestor. We talk about the heredity and the environment. Okay, and again, go and read in this book. You'll see even in environment, you have some other aspects you have to consider in environment. How environment will dictate and shape your thinking, your action, and your thinking. Okay, talk about the environment. In homes, you have televisions. In homes, you have internet services. In homes, you have those surrounding us. Okay, how do they shape and affect our thinking? Is very important. Heredity, how what we have inherited from our parents, from our ancestors, it can also affect our thinking. Some of the people will act and act related to what they are doing based in compared to their parents. You see, somebody is being harsh as his father or as his mother. It's because of the inheritance. That's a blood stream. It will affect our performance. We have to go and read more on this particular factors. Another is supernatural interventions. Okay, how you involve yourself with the supernatural intervention. We talk about the God-fearing people. We talk about people who are religious grounded. We talk about how the belief system has affected your thinking. It will also affect your moral thoughts and action. Those who are God fearing normally will abstain from doing some of the activities and some of they will also avoid some of the involvement because of thinking that they are committing sins whatsoever. So supernatural intervention will also affect the level of your morality, thinking, and actions. We have another chance and luck. Chance and luck. We talk about events that are beyond control and will automatically change your behavior. Okay, sometimes you can be raised from a very noble family with a good behavior, but because of chance and luck, it happened maybe you win a lottery or so you get a huge money. Okay, that will change your morality, your behavior, and action. You are not used to go to nightclubs because of the chances you are now having money whatsoever. It changes. Okay, so sometimes what comes in our life unexpected, when it is good, it will affect us in one direction. What is bad is also so. Whatever happens in life, we unexpected, which impact our life, it may affect our thinking, our action, and our moral standards. Also, we talk about individual differences. Okay, individual differences. Okay, we have to accept this one. Okay, we are not the same. We have differences. Also, your differences will also determine your moral actions and thinking. And lastly, it's popularity factors. Sometimes when you become popular, also you change on where you think, on where you act, on your morality. You used to eat in Mama Ntilie, or you used to interact with some your peers because of your popularity. Okay, for example, in Tanzania we have those popular figures. They even change shops to visit. They change even the restaurant to visit. They change even the mall to visit. They change everything. So their life is being affected with their populace. So go and read this book, discuss how these 5 factors can affect and influence moral thoughts and behavior. And hopefully, this lecture will make something substantial, uh, uh, adding to what you have been taught in the previous lectures. And through your interactive discussions and this on these presentations, quite sure that you'll be a professional and a competent teacher to serve this nation, so that we produce a competent workforce as the government is looking forward from you. Thank you very much. Your questions and the reactions in this YouTube class as you normally do. You can interact through the Moodle. You can interact through the email, even by visiting physically in my office for discussions and clarifications as the need arise. Thank you very much. Enjoy listening, enjoy uh, discussion, and finally, we meet in the coming class for further lecture series. Thank you very much.